Hello and welcome to Camp Xbox. Tom Clancy and the Xbox go so well together, with the Xbox getting multiple Clancy games a year during its time on the market. Not long ago, I talked about the first Ghost Recon on the Xbox, and after a channel poll, it seemed you all wanted me to take a look at the next entry with Ghost Recon Island Thunder. The PC expansion pack got a standalone release on the Xbox. I played through it recently, and I'll give you some history along with a review. All footage was captured off of an original Xbox, except when noted, and I'd like to thank my YouTube channel members for their support. But let's go ahead and hop into this one. So going back to the first Ghost Recon before the release of the Xbox version in late 2001. It was a hit game, was well received, and sold exceptionally well. This squad-based first-person shooter captured PC audiences and would go on to be one of the best-selling PC games of the first half of the 2000s. In the PC space, that meant they had to have expansion packs to keep gamers coming back. Before the release of the Xbox version, there were two expansion packs for the PC. We got Desert Siege in early 2002, and then there was Island Thunder, which came out in September 2002, which was right before the Xbox release of the first Ghost Recon. A big thing about Ghost Recon on the Xbox, though, was that it was initially meant for an earlier release, but it opted for a November launch to coincide with the Xbox Live release. At least that's what I believe. So it seemed that any expansion packs weren't included in that release, unlike the PS2, which got the Desert Siege DLC on their disc. Yet Ghost Recon was a major success on Xbox Live, so that meant the developers at Red Storm had to look at what was next for the Xbox console. Well, the easy answer was to bring Island Thunder, the expansion pack, to the Xbox. It would be announced in February 2003 as an August release, meaning more Ghost Recon was coming in under a year. Though in early previews, Red Storm was adamant that this was not a new game. It would have the same old graphics and gameplay. It was a standalone expansion that didn't require the original disc, meaning it was just a continuation of the original and not really a progression. A big focus, though, would be the multiplayer component, with IGN holding a poll for fans to pick 4 of the multiplayer maps from the first game to come back, with Embassy, Battlefield, Castle, and Wilderness all returning. The maps would be a mix of these old maps, some Desert Siege maps, and maps from the PC version of Island Thunder. Ghost Recon Island Thunder would release on Xbox on August 5th, 2003 in North America, and would see a European release in September. Also, I'd like to add in, because I don't know where to put it, I have this sweet Xbox guide for this game, and I really like the look of it and the green spine these Xbox guides had. I have never played this game before, but I love the first Ghost Recon on the Xbox. I never realized I liked tactical games like this until recently, so I was excited to hop back in. So let me tell you about my experience, starting with the plot.
As you know, gentlemen, we are here to help safeguard the first democratic elections Cuba's seen since before Batista took control. Since Castro's death in 2006, the Cuban people have had a succession of increasingly incompetent thugs in charge, and thankfully, that's going to change.
In Island Thunder's short campaign, you play as the ghosts as you go into Cuba. Cuba is undergoing a democratic transition, and it's in your best interest to ensure that continues. Yet, a communist party called the FDG want to make it a dictatorship again, and they use political violence and fraud to make sure that happens. As the ghosts, you go around breaking up various drug rings and other ways the FDG have implemented control in Cuba and tear down their organization. This is all told over 8 short missions, and the plot is minuscule in comparison to the scope of the original, which stays true to its expansion pack design. You go in, break up some rings, kill anyone who opposes you, and there's no cutscenes or dialogue in the missions, which I believe is a good thing because it doesn't slow down the gameplay whatsoever. The plot is told in pre-game text rolls with a narrator in the form of mission briefings, and that's fine. You roll through the timeline to the lead up to the election and then the exodus of FDG from Cuba. The plot feels like something I had seen seen before, and it wasn't quite as well written as the original. It certainly feels like a plot quickly put together to get more content out. I don't hate the plot, but it's nothing crazy. And in total, it's only told in 2 to 3 hours, including the gameplay. So it certainly feels like a small plot for a standalone release. And it would have been nice to get Desert Siege included or something like that to make this feel like a fuller package. Yet the plot was never a huge focus for the first game either. I liked it because it was laid out like you were a guiding force and you weren't the main character. It's just that the original plot was surprisingly solid, and in comparison, this one is extremely basic. Not terrible, but not memorable either. You just do tiny tasks, and the guiding force feeling doesn't feel as all-encompassing or interesting as the original. Yet the gameplay is key, and let me tell you how that went.
Right behind.
So Island Thunder, in terms of gameplay, does not offer much new in any form. The developers in early releases said that the quick downtime from release to release meant no upgrades or changes would be made. So that means Island Thunder is a retread of the original Ghost Recon, which isn't a bad thing. The original was a great time, and this one continues that great gameplay from the main campaign. In this game, you pick from a group of soldiers, and you put them in 2 different squads. Each has various weapons, and it's your job to choose their gear and send them into the mission. By passing these missions and doing bonus objectives, you get better soldiers, and you also earn upgrade points to keep them stronger, meaning that it has elements of an RPG, which I think is awesome to make this game feel more personal. Yet something to harp upon is that this game is short. It took me a little over 2 hours to beat this game, and the progression of your soldiers doesn't feel strong. You can't carry soldiers over from your first game, you restart with this one, and when you only get a little content, the progression just doesn't stick. It's fun, but integration with the last Ghost Recon by carrying your save over on the hard drive or something like that would have helped out a lot. Yet the core gameplay is still a blast. You take your squads out onto the battlefield and you command them and where they go on the map. You also get to play any one of the soldiers and shoot enemies along the way. The shooting gameplay is great with nice recoil and a good feel to each weapon, though you do have to stay back as one shot can kill you instantly and anyone in your squad, so you have to be slow and tactical. It's an addictive mix, and its slowness is rewarding and fun. Commanding your troops as you move feels good, and the feel of the experience continues to be awesome. Though one thing I didn't love is the minimap, which is cumbersome due to the use of the D-pad to move where your soldiers are going to go, and it moves slow. It's a holdover from the first game, and it continues to not be great, but you get used to it. The level design continues to be strong here, and the game gets a nice mix of different missions. From areas separated by large canyons, you get to go to the beaches, and there's also forests with watchtowers, all laid out well with multiple ways to tackle the objectives. It's free-flowing and allows you to be creative in how you take it down, which is always the most rewarding. I don't think the levels are as varied or inspired as the first release. They do manage to make the most of it being set in Cuba. The layouts continue to be solidly done. Yet there isn't a lot. With only 8 missions that can be beaten in maybe 15 minutes, this game is a breeze. You can die quickly, but the ability to quick save means you can restart easily. It's a good thing at times, but it does make the combat go by faster. I get that this is just an expansion pack and it wasn't released at full price, but as someone who plays these things mainly for the main campaign, like I assume most people do nowadays, it's lackluster to get so little out of the single player. Though it's over fast, the replay factor is kind of there, but there's only so much you can replay. So at its core, it's the same great game. The shooting and tactical side are all solid, and it's a blast. I had fun playing this one, yet when you get down to how little there is and how much wasn't improved, it pales in comparison to the original release, which makes sense. It's an expansion pack, not a sequel. Yet as a standalone package on the Xbox, it's just not doing enough and needs a bit more to amp up the gameplay in some way. It's fun, but there's not much new and the levels aren't as inspired. So we have a rehash that's fun, but it doesn't have that special touch. A huge part of Island Thunder upon release was its Xbox Live support. In my opinion, Island Thunder served more as an expansion to the online offerings, adding more maps to play on. I did not play this one online back in its heyday, and I would love your opinions in the comments on how the online was. I think that's important to note, and I think using the comments to talk about that is a great way to bring back some awesome memories. We did get to stream this one on Insignia a little bit ago, which Insignia is the Xbox Live replacement service, but but unfortunately we ran into a lot of crashes and issues. We were unable to try any of the competitive matches, but we did get to play through some of the story in co-op. Now that was a ton of fun. I loved having a full lobby of everyone moving around the map trying to clear out objectives. With voice chat back in the day, this would have been a blast. You can also do this and the other modes with System Link and local multiplayer too, so there's certainly more offerings when it comes to the multiplayer over the single player. And I want to add on here, there are a ton of DLC maps for this game. You would be surprised how many new maps and game modes were dropped onto this one, and they're all easily accessible nowadays. I want to dig into them more in depth, and I think for now going over every single one of them would extend this video's length too far. So be sure to look out for another episode of my DLC on the original Xbox sometime in the future, where these ones will definitely be included.
We're gone.
In place and ready. There's wounded here.
Visually, Island Thunder, once again, is more of the same, meaning it's not a great looking game. Yet, as Ghost Recon wasn't great looking in 2002, getting that same exact looking game in 2003 made it feel even more outdated. The character models are a bit flat and the environments are a bit muddy. Objects and different elements across the levels tend to be a bit flat and the draw distance is bad. There is fog that surrounds the game and blocks off much of your vision. It's not terrible and it never ruins gameplay, but I did think it made a lot of the environments look worse. Yet, unlike what the developer said, I do think there are improvements here. The frame rate chug from the first game is gone. I never had any issues with the frame rate in this release ever, so it is cleaned up there. There's also a heavier focus on weather effects in this game, especially with rain and its interaction with objects and buildings, something that I did appreciate. Also, there are more objects in the level. Where the first one felt a little empty, there was more areas with objects in them and it felt fuller, especially in the forest with more trees. Though they didn't look great and the colors still continue to be muddy, it does at least come through clean enough. I can also say that there is some level art that works really well. I really love the Cuban streets that stood out as something different against the jungles, and the same thing can be said for the beach map that has ocean waves rolling in that felt fresh for the series. I can say though that this is only a slight improvement over the last one, but many of the core issues from the original remain here, making for something that in 2003 felt a bit behind.
Moving out. Enemy down. Another kill.
The audio remains one of my favorite elements of this game, and it's because it knows when to be quiet. When you get out there into the mission, there is no music. All you hear is the rustling of the wind, your footsteps, and sometimes the rain. The lack of music helps give it that tense, tactical atmosphere where any enemy could pop up and get you. I really love the sound detail in the weather and how your footsteps sound on different terrain. It's a perfect headphones game to get you into the surroundings. It also makes your team's voice commands pop out more, saying things like enemies are spotted, killed, and if they're being pinned down, along with a bunch of other small things. They do a great job of notifying you of anything going on. The voice work is clean and clear, and it helps build the atmosphere. There's a small bit of music for when you complete the levels, but otherwise it's a quiet game, and in that quietness the environments come to life, letting you sink into the areas and strategically move with a clear mind. I continue to appreciate the sound work in this series. So Island Thunder is a port of a PC game, so let's take a look at that one first for comparison. One huge bonus is that Island Storm is an expansion. Not only do you get to play all the campaigns and maps, it's nice and complete together in one package when you open the game, making it feel more complete and a bit more respectable when the game looks and plays the same between the two. And let me say, I think the PC version is the best way to play this out of the bunch. Not only is it easily playable on Steam, but it also has a modding community to keep it alive. Yet just from a gameplay standpoint, it feels better. For one, the map is all done with the mouse and keyboard, and it feels buttery smooth, removing the slowness of the Xbox version's map. You also get 3 teams, and you can split your soldiers between 3 teams, so you get more coverage of the map. The tactical side of this feels better, but that's needed because even on the easiest difficulty, this game is tough. It throws so many enemies at you, and I think I like the Xbox's difficulty balance a bit better since the damage is a little more lenient, but for people that like a hardcore game, this will feel good on the PC. It also looks better on the PC. Of course, I'm running this on a modern PC, so it's going to run at max settings, which automatically makes it look the best. I think the PC version is the way to go overall. Now, the PS2 version is where we get a bit weird. Technically, the PS2 never got this game. Instead, it was packed in with Jungle Storm, a new campaign just for the PS2 and the N-Gage. To compare it, I just looked at the Island Thunder campaign that came packed in with Jungle Storm. But in terms of content, the PS2 version is better than the Xbox if you want more in terms of campaign, but otherwise the Xbox version is superior. For one, the Xbox version looks better. At first glance, I was impressed by the draw distance of the PS2 version. You can see more without a fog, but it comes at the cost of a worse frame rate. Also, the game looks much blurrier. One of the most appalling things is the animations on the enemies. They stagger around and look awful. It looks horrible for the time, and it's a bit of a disappointment. Also, the rain looks worse with bad environmental effects, which means getting less fog meant for a downward tick on everything else. I do, however, think the interface looks cleaner on the PS2, where it does get a nicer UI overhaul. The map allows you to use the right stick, which is perfect, and there is a button to quickly move your team without the map, which is a nice streamlining for the console. So you do get some benefits there, but I don't think that's enough to make it better. So it's more about just wanting more content or a better looking game, if you need to choose between consoles. But I would say the Xbox version takes the cake there, but the PC version is the king of the bunch. Ghost Recon Island Thunder is a good time, there's no doubt about that. It has the same addictive puzzle-like gameplay, allowing you to move in and take out enemies slowly. So I do think this is a solid game that is a step away from being great. It's a general downgrade in terms of content and level design, and feels like a rush to get out something to capitalize on the original success on Xbox Live. The online is great, so that's a plus. So we have a solid game here. You'll have fun with it, but don't expect to stick to it for very long. I've now reviewed 127 original Xbox games here on the channel, and ranking them all up, this one enters in at number 86. I put it above NASCAR Thunder 2002 because in terms of replayability, Ghost Recon is just far more entertaining, and I want to go back to it more often. Yet Scalar goes above this one for similar reasons. Though riffing on many platformers of the time, Scalar just has a creative edge, where Island Thunder is just kind of a rehash. Scalar was actually something different and a little more creative, and I think that makes it a bit more memorable. This game got generally favorable reviews according to Metacritic with an 81 average. IGN gave it an 8.4, saying that it was the same fun game, but was lacking in single-player content, but was meant for Xbox Live. Game Informer gave it an 8.25 with an 8.5 in the second opinion, praising the Xbox Live support and saying that if you dig this style of game from Red Storm, then you are in for more of a good thing. Official Xbox Magazine gave it a 9, saying that despite an aging graphics engine, it still was the definition of immersion and level design, both in the single and multiplayer. Sales-wise, this game was another hit after the success of the original Ghost Recon, which sold over 1 million copies. This one, according to estimates from VG Charts, would sell over 800,000 copies on the Xbox, which is a smash success for the console. This would mean that this would get a Platinum Hits release and a Classics release, as well as the rare Best of Platinum Hits release. This was definitely one that worked for many people, and I see comments, and I've been requested to review this one plenty of times, and this one won the poll for the video. In my comments, I know many people out there have great memories with this game online. As for future games in the series, well, Ghost Recon would keep on chugging as a yearly Xbox franchise, and a sequel would be quickly on its way, so we will stop the story of development there, and I will catch up with the history on that one in that game's review. I know many people have played Island Thunder, but on backlog, the Xbox version only has 26 players marking it as played, and it has an average of 3.6. There's only one positive review here, so I need you all to let me know in the comments how you felt about this one, so we can get a good consensus on how loved or maybe hated this game is nowadays. But if you enjoyed this review overall, please leave a like, it really helps me out in the algorithm. Subscribe to keep up with more content like this, and be sure to check out my second channel, Camp Extras, for more gaming content. And I want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube channel members. Thank you so much for your support. You really help out the channel, and I'll see you here next time at Camp Xbox.